Welcome to the Bodega Cat Podcast with Christina Ng. Over the next hour, you'll hear from guest experts from a variety of different backgrounds, with specialties pertaining to pets and humans alike. Now, here is Christina.
Hi, everybody. This is Christina from the Bodega Cat Podcast. We're so happy you guys are joining in with us. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Helen West. And what I'm going to do is read a little bit of her bio, and then I'll have her expand on it. And then we'll talk about what she wants to talk about. Okay, here we go. As the founding member of Ascendant Wellness Association, Helen West brings over 3 decades of business development, marketing, and teaching experience to the association. Born in South Korea and raised in Michigan and California, most of her career has been in the technology and software sectors, ranging from large corporations to startups, working within the corporate structure as well as through independent consulting. After taking a hiatus upon having children, Helen then changed careers instructing elementary students in computers and technology until she was unable to work due to her heart condition. Being an avid reader and always thirsty for knowledge, Helen brings forth an incredible amount of knowledge in alternative and holistic healing modalities to Ascendant Wellness. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Helen, for joining us today. And I'm very excited about our conversation. I know you and I have kind of been through similar paths, if you will. What I wanted to do is, have you kind of expound a little bit on your experience with your technology background and your business background, and then how you end up with business to elementary teacher to what you're doing currently.
Yes. Thank you so much, Christina, for having me. It's truly an honor.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, majority of my background in terms of, my career has been in business development, marketing, as well as operations. And how I ended up from that to teaching is there came a point in my life when I was traveling so much. My kids were little, and I remember at one point, a couple of things happened in a span of like a week. I was leaving again, and my little one, my oldest at the time, started crying and said, "Mom, you don't even raise us. It's Auntie Julie that raises us. You're gone so much." And so for one thing that broke my heart. And then in that same week when I was getting on a plane, I traveled so much for work at that time. And, when you check in and you're going through, all of the checkpoints, one of the things that they do is they look at your boarding pass and they ask you where you're going. And I remember they asked me, and I honestly couldn't remember because I was traveling so much and my assistant at the time would book all my travels and stuff. And I looked at them and I completely blanked and I said, "I have no idea." Mm-hmm. And then they pulled me aside because that was a very suspicious, weird answer. Right? So it was those couple of things that really made me realize that I'm gone too much. I'm not raising my kids. I'm just, So my husband and I, we, had a serious discussion about, the state of our finances and just everything. And I decided to stay home, made some serious adjustments in, how we lived our lives. And then, of course, when I stopped working, then I literally volunteered 100% of my time to my kids' schools and daycare at the time, and realized, my gosh, I love being around kids. I love teaching. And so then I went and got, the certifications and the credentials I needed to teach. And I only taught, in the elementary school environment for about 3 years. And then COVID hit, and back in 2020, I got COVID and I was hospitalized. Had to quit work and everything. And it was after I was released from the hospital. I was attached to a breathing machine for about 3 or 4 months. I couldn't breathe on my own. And it was really a rough journey of getting back to the state of health that I'm in now. And it was during that process, where I, was going through and trying virtually every healing modality known to man other than the Western medical system. There is a time and place for that. I don't want to, just, completely negate, the benefits of certain things. But for long term and for surgery, those two things were not something that I was willing to do. So that's how I found out about the EE system. And just like you, I'm an EE system center as well. So, and I love the fact that we collaborate. You have the most collaborative heart of all of the EE system center owners that I've come across. I really appreciate that about you. So
thank you so much. Yeah, I've always thought, I've always thought that there's strength in numbers, like we talked about earlier. And I remember I like to watch movies once in a while. And there's a movie called Red Cliff. And in that particular movie, the general, all his little soldiers were like bickering and, complaining and all that stuff. And then this general, he didn't say anything. He just stood up. He took a what do you call it? Those branches. Mm-hmm. He took one branch and he broke it off. And then he took a bunch of branches and he couldn't break it off. And he said to the soldiers, there's strength in numbers. If you're one little branch, it's easy to break. But if you're a bunch of branches together, you can't break it. And I've always remembered that, in whatever it is, quote, movement we're in. And for me, it's the healing movement because my spiritual lineage is the healing lineage from Buddha Guan Yin. It's always there's strength in numbers. It's just as simple as that.
And we are all connected. We are each individually, making our own imprint and paving our own path in terms of the new world that we are co-creating. But at the same time, we are all connected as one. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's like we're one big organism. Yes. And, you and I might be in the liver area cells. We're little cells in the liver. And other people are in the, spleen area. And, but we're all working together for the benefit of the organism and the host. That's the way I see it. So,
yes, absolutely.
Whatever it is that we do, it's important,
Yes.
Yeah. That's great. Absolutely. So how did you get from, so you talked you mentioned a little bit about your health. It sounds like, was it a big crisis that kind of got you into the EE system?
Yeah. So when I got diagnosed with COVID and when I was hospitalized for it, just like so many people back in late 2020, that was during the time when the hospitals were full and you couldn't have visitors and all that kind of stuff. So after I was released from the hospital, and by the way, I was released in error, but there was divinity in that because I truly believe that had I stayed like I was supposed to, I probably wouldn't be having this interview with you today. I probably wouldn't be alive. So what happened after I was released was I was released with tachycardia, which basically means at resting rate, your heart is beating over 100, per minute. Mm-hmm. Now, I would walk literally like several feet from resting state, and my heart would be beating at 160, 170.
Wow.
And so basically they wanted to do surgery because they were saying your heart is not going to last. It's not meant to work this hard for the rest of your life. And so, after I was released from the hospital and I was going back and forth all the time because of other issues and conditions and it's getting all kinds of tests done. And finally, when they did a bunch of tests on my heart, one of the things that they found was, so you have a couple of different valves that are attached or a part of your heart. And one is the mitral valve. And the function of that valve is basically to open, every time your heart beats, what happens is the valve opens so that blood can rush into your heart, and then it closes so that the blood can go through the rest of your heart and then to the rest of your body. So for whatever reason, for, COVID, and that man-made disease, I hope it's okay for me to say that, by the way. I don't know if I have to be careful with certain words, but one of the things that, one of the things that disease does, and it doesn't matter what it is, it attacks the weakest part of your body. And I already had a heart condition that they couldn't diagnose, with arrhythmia and, irregular beats and things like that. I felt it. But every time, I would go in to try to get it checked, because it didn't happen during the time that they were checked it, they said there was nothing wrong with my heart. And it's very frustrating when you know something and they tell you it's, that you don't have a condition. So at any rate, when I was hospitalized and all the subsequent tests, one of the things that they found was that my mitral valve was actually not connecting with my heart. It had actually kind of dissolved. So it was never touching my heart. So that's why it was beating so fast, because not enough blood was pumping through the rest of my body, because it was never closing. And so it was never able to fully, close and then shoot through the rest of my heart into the rest of my body. So that was the condition. And I actually haven't gone back, to be honest with you, to get it checked. But because I know I can feel the difference in my health, And, when I put on the pulse oximeter, which measures your heart rate as well as the oxygen level in your cells, it tells me I'm fine. So, and I haven't gone back to get it checked because I don't need more radiation going through my body. And as you know, from being an EE System Center and from what Dr. Sandra Rose Michael says, simply, I think it was one of her, it was one of the interviews it was one of the presentations that she gave at the Tesla convention several years ago, where she was talking about, basically the radiated state, sort of the microwave state that we are living in on planet Earth. And of course, she used California as the example when she said, for example, in California, just by the fact that you're living in California, it's the equivalent to getting 3 chest x-rays every day. So we are being radiated that much simply by the fact that we live in California. So, having heard that, I just didn't want to radiate myself any extra than I'm already getting every day. So.
Yeah, but it kind of makes our job or our mission more important, right? Because if you want to think about it, we're sort of, I don't know if I want to say this, but, behind enemy lines, if you will.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the great thing about what you're doing and what we're all doing and the time that we have entered into, I think we're in for kind of a rough ride this year. With everything unearthing, everything's surfacing, at the, the level of humanity and Earth, but individually as well, all the good things as well as the bad. So, it's time that all of these things that maybe only a few know or a certain group of people know, unfortunately, those who are not aware or who kind of have turned a blind eye to what's been kind of, been put in front of them, it's time this year that people are going to have to face things that they maybe, just kind of neglected to look into and look at. So it's good because all of these things must surface. So the good and the bad are surfacing this year.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And this is how divine energy works. When divine energy comes in, and it can manifest in different ways. Some of it is knowledge, a lot, which is what we're going through right now. But, when divine energy comes in, it cleans house, basically.
Yeah.
It acts like a fertilizer. So you're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think this is the year that we're going to see that. But it needs to be done.
Yes.
A lot of people are living in fear, but really there's a cycle to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And when all these things come up and the cleansing and all that, then we can start anew and start building and start from the foundation.
Yes.
So I think it's pretty exciting in a way.
It is extremely exciting. I mean, we are oh my gosh, Christina, that we get to live and be on planet Earth at this momentous time in the history of humanity. I mean, these are amazing, amazing times. And as, long as we can, we are aware of why things are happening, that the fake World War III is just that, it's fake, but it's there to awaken those who are maybe a little bit deeper in slumber than some others. And, but we have to acknowledge, planet Earth and all of the things that we have allowed to happen. We can't point fingers and blame others. We have allowed the atrocities to happen and in terms of the state that we find ourselves in. I'm not saying that we're currently directly responsible for some of the horrendous things that, the deep state have been doing, but we have allowed it as a collective, and now we are no longer allowing it as a collective. So that's why these things are, coming forward. So,
yeah, that really points to the power of consciousness and the power of our mind and how we can really shift and change the direction with just our, with just our consciousness.
Yeah.
And so if you look at like the Schumann resonance and all that stuff, the peaks are really our direction, our consciousness we're creating, right?
Yes.
So the question is, are we creating fear? Are we feeding that fear? Or are we feeding love and positiveness? And it really is a choice. I do Akashic record readings for my clients, and I always tell them your biggest power is your current moment, is this moment right here, because this is where you make your decision. Do you want to go left or right, positive or negative?
Yes.
And that's where your strength is. That's where your power is. And a lot of people lose sight of that.
Yes. Our thoughts and words create our reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about how you jumped on the EE system wagon.
Okay.
And and how you come about with your center. I feel like I was a hospice nurse for over 25 years. And
oh my God.
As a hospice nurse, I see the end of life, right, on the other side. And one day I was having just like a little soiree with other nurses and stuff like that. And there was a couple nurses that they were the neonatals. So I said to them, we're like on the end of the spectrum. I'm on the, the end of life, and they're on the beginning of life. And so I kind of feel like that with you. I'm probably the smallest unit or the smallest center in all the EE systems that's open, and you're probably the biggest.
You know what? It doesn't really matter. Bottom line is, and so I want to share just something about that in terms of the number of units, in terms of the EE system. So where we are, in Southern California, there are many EE system centers, and there's one actually, my sister actually has a center that's maybe like 30 minutes with no traffic, which no traffic is not a thing in Southern California.
More like an hour.
Yeah. So, she has a unit, or she has a center that has 48 units. I have 40. But bottom line is, and I'm sure you're finding this as well, people will go to where they resonate. It's that simple. And the number of units, it matters, but it really doesn't either. Like as an example, we have people that are coming. In fact, I just made all the arrangements this morning. We have people that come from other states because they want to be here. At first, they resonate with, the information that you make available to them on the website. And everything that we do, because energy is put in towards everything that we do, every word we write, every image that we put up, whatever the case may be. So we have people that are coming from other states simply because they resonate with us, even though there are other locations that are closer to them with similar number of units. And, and the same thing, with you, people are going to resonate with you in terms of the amazing things that you provide. because you're not just providing an atmosphere that's homey and comfortable. And I've seen it in images, on your website in terms of your cats and things like that. But because of who you are and what you offer in terms of like the Akashic readings and things like that. So we are all, birds of a feather flock together is most definitely true. And, like energies attract like energies. So it doesn't really matter the spectrum. And, and when we were talking about, good things coming as well as the bad things. So you asked me, and I know I gave a very simple answer when you asked me, a couple of weeks ago, well, what would you like to talk about? And what I would actually like to talk about are medbeds. So, when we talk about new things that are coming, and everything surfacing. So, along with the bad, which is already, majority of it is already in the hands of the white hats. And a lot of the negative things that we are seeing are being allowed to happen because energy has to play itself out. And because there's psyop after, behind psyop after behind psyop. And it's all being carefully done. But as far as the good things, this is the year where we're going to have so many things you'll begin to see in even regular media and regular news, not just the alternative, in terms of the amazing things that are coming to humanity. And I'm really excited to share with you guys today, what we are going to be offering here at Ascended Wellness. Probably at the latest, we're looking at about the mid-April time frame. So yeah, when you asked that question a couple of weeks ago, I said, I want to talk about the medbed. So that's what I was referring to.
Well, we'll get to that. First of all, I want to thank you for your kind words about my center. I do believe that each and every one of us, no matter how small or large the center is, we minister to different people, and universe. Like for me, I've referred a lot of people to you, to your center, and to your sister center, just because of the conversations I've had with them in terms of their condition and things like that, and and each of the center owners brings with him or her their unique abilities and their unique perspective, right? And their unique creativity. So even though we have the same EE system, you and I, we bring to it different energy and different positiveness and different creativity. And I think that's what makes us unique. We're all one, but we all have our own unique perspective on things and our unique talents. Yeah. And so there is a reason why I have a 4 unit and you have a 40. I don't know why, but I'm just, whoever comes through my center, I will always pray for them and bless them. And that's my job as a spiritual practitioner. So, So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So I know you're very excited about the medbeds, and I'll just let you go ahead and talk about it.
Okay. I didn't mean to jump the gun. I don't know if I fully answered the questions that you were asking about how I got started with the EE system.
No, I mean, if there's anything you want to add, you're welcome to. But really, the floor is yours. You're my guest, and you have the floor.
Okay. Well, just to finish, to make sure that I answer your question fully and thoroughly. So, when I was on my healing journey of, fixing my body without surgery or medication, that's when I learned about the EE system. I went to an overnight, and I was really surprised at what happened to me with one overnight session, which was not at all why I went. Back then, everything I was doing was for my heart. But after that first overnight session, I had 3 major things completely alleviated from my life. One was migraines, like really, really bad migraines. And then another was not having to use the restroom, frequently during the night, getting up, 5 times a night to use the restroom. And then the third thing that alleviated was fatigue, which I'm sure had to do with the fact that I couldn't sleep, very well and thoroughly and for a long period of time. So, I saw that, and then I saw so many other people healing. My sister, for example, who we just mentioned, she had unbelievable rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, she couldn't even hold a cup in her hand. She couldn't even push the the electric toothbrush button. She had to wear braces to keep her joints from splitting. She was on all kinds of medication, plus injections. I mean, and she's totally fine now. She has no RA, rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease that is not supposed to be reversible. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is your body will heal itself when given the right environment. And it's the first thing that it's going to do. So I am sure that we have all witnessed amazing healing. But the thing that most people don't talk about, and I just want to make that very, very clear, and I would like to bring this up in this interview, people can't heal physically unless they heal first emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. Because of the state of disease that we hold in our bodies originate from one of those three areas. So I'm sure you've seen this in your center as well, but, oftentimes we have people coming out of the system room and they're just crying and their tears are, streaming down their face, and they'll say, I don't even know why I'm crying, but I'm crying. And it's because they're healing emotionally, they're healing physically, they're healing mentally. And when those areas, because that's all connected, you can't heal one without the other. So as we heal emotionally and spiritually and mentally, that is when the healing then manifests in our body, because it is those negative energies or those stuck emotions that we haven't addressed that causes dis-ease in our bodies. So, regardless of the number of unit center, you are being helped in that area when you go into an EE system center. So, I think that's something very important for people to understand, that we have to heal in those areas in order for our physical healing to become permanent. And then, of course, our lifestyle and the foods we eat, things like that also matter as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember when I was a hospice nurse, I see some of my patients who have cancer. They beat the cancer and the cancer came back, with a vengeance. Mm-hmm. And so it sort of got me thinking, yes, there is physical healing, but it only takes you to so far. There are different other layers. We have like what you said, we have the emotional layer, the mental layer, we have our auras, we have an energetic blueprint. And, with the Kirlian photography, you could see it. And It actually starts from the astral realm, which is the energy realm, and it physicalizes. If you don't deal with that, and of course it gets to the spiritual level, because ultimately my teacher says, all diseases stem from disconnection with God, with the divine. If you don't have that divine essence in your life, you're always going to be struggling with illnesses and diseases and stuff like that. And, you hear a lot about the excitement about med beds and all that stuff. They don't really talk about that. And like what you said, they don't talk about the emotional, the mental, the spiritual part, which is, I think, very important. So.
Yes, and I would, hazard a guess to say we need healing in those areas more so than the physical.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, because, as we focus on those, it will eventually physicalize, the healing will physicalize into, and it's many layers. I tell when people call me and ask about the EE system, I tell them healing is a journey. Yeah. And for some of us, it's going to be never ending. It's not like, you heal yourself physically and that's it. It's not a stop, end of journey kind of thing.
Right.
It's to me, I don't want to say forever, but it's going to be ongoing because, you have you heal your physical body, but then you got your emotional stuff that you need to take care of. And these are 30, 40, 50 years of garbage that you've, accumulated, right?
Yes.
And then you got your family stuff, right? That, and then your ancestral things and so it's like on and on and on and on. And it's a little bit at a time. It's a little bit at a time. It's like an onion. Just peel it a little bit at a time. And you peel it, more stuff comes up and you got to
No, you're absolutely right. So even if we were, let's say, I have yet to meet a person that is 100% spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically where they should be. But let's say there is a person that exists on planet Earth. I'm sure there are,
Well, we wouldn't be in this dimension.
This is true. But let's
probably be like an ascended master or something.
Right, but let's say this person exists. But like you said, then you have, all of your ancestral things that you're carrying, in your bloodline that you have to clear. You also have your past lives and all the things that you brought with you in this life from your past lives that, you need to clear and heal from. And then, and you can probably talk more about this, because you do Akashic readings and things like that. But then the other thing too is, you have soul contracts with people. So it might be your soul contract that you have this disease. So even if you're cleared everything, maybe your purpose in life was to come to this world with this specific disease because that is the soul contract that you entered into with those around you. And it's all based out of love. Everything is based out of love.
Absolutely.
Love. It stems from love. Mm-hmm. And these are all things that we all have to be aware of. And and I believe we are living through times, I truly believe in my heart that birth is no longer a place that you come to for serious and heavy duty learning. I think those days are over. I think the karmic cycle is over, and that's why we are going through what we're going through right now. We officially, entered into the age of Aquarius. And so the golden age is upon us, but, before we can set things right, as the world seems to be turning upside down, it's not, it's turning itself right. So, we just have to clear some of these things from the world perspective, from us individually. And we are going to see, and we're already beginning to see healing at every level, and not just at an individual level, but relationally and financially, and so many other wonderful things that are upon us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we're shifting into learning to be co-creators.
Yes.
And that's pretty exciting.
Yes. It is exciting.
Yeah. So let's talk about the medbeds.
Okay. So I just want to start off by saying that the term medbed is so widely used and used by everyone in so many different ways. So, for example, I just want to talk about what we're familiar with and maybe what your audience may be familiar with, which is the EE system. So, for example, when Dr. Sandra Rose Michael, the inventor of EE system, says the EE system is beyond medbed technology. So it is my understanding what she means by that is typical medbeds that we all think we know what it is, treats, people one person at a time. So when she says it's beyond medbeds, and if I'm recollecting her answer about this, is that the EE system is beyond medbeds because you can literally have a room full of people, like the ashram in India, where they do 24 units. Gosh, is it 500 people or is it 1,000 people that can go into the room? So it's not one person at a time. And of course, the collective energy when you're going in there to heal is, of course, going to have a huge impact as well. So she talks about the EE system being beyond medbeds. But I want to be very, very clear when I explain to you and when I explain to your audience that the medbeds that I'm talking about is nothing on planet Earth that has ever existed, period. So it has nothing to do with the EE system. It has nothing to do with the plasma med beds, which is another, thing that seems to be kind of popping up within EE system centers as well as other places. It has nothing to do with what some people are calling quantum med beds or galactic med beds. There's so many different terms that are loosely used. So it's nothing that Earth humanity has ever had, and this includes the military white hat med beds. So I know this is a lofty claim, and some of your readers are probably scratching their heads wondering what the heck I'm talking about. So the closest thing to what we're getting, the closest thing that has ever existed on planet Earth in terms of what may even come close to comparison are the white hat military NDA med beds that have been available, because it's from a similar group but not the same. So anyway, I just wanted to make that differentiation and that clarification, because it's not the tachyon, it's not scalar, it's not the Tesla coils, it's not, the plasma, it's nothing that exists, period. It's nothing that has ever existed, period. So, having said that, I want to first tell you where and how I came about getting this. So, the med beds that are coming, and like I said, at the very latest, it'll be about mid-April timeframe of this year. So we're looking at, a couple of months at the most. We are getting them directly from the Q group. So Q, by the way, is, and I didn't find out that we were working directly with the Q group until the end of December, just a couple of months ago. So, Q group consists of 9 different entities worldwide. That's it. And Q, I mistakenly thought, for those that follow Q or, whatever, or have heard about it, I mistakenly thought it was just a U.S.-based thing, but it's worldwide. And in fact, it's not even just Earth. It goes beyond. It goes to the galactic. So when I say there are 9 entities, there are 7 humans and 2 groups that are not just one person, if you will. So one, for example, are the galactics. So so Q actually entails basically non-human galactics. And how I got involved and how I got into, this is, just like you, Christina, I've, especially after I opened my center and, in the process of opening my center, which took about a year, I've been, putting feelers out in terms of alternative healing modalities that provide healing without harm and true healing, not just a mask or a Band-Aid. So I have been putting feelers out in terms of all of the med bed stuff that's out there. You've got the med bed, you've got celestial chambers, you've got all these kinds of things that are out there that people talk about. So one thing that I did, I can't remember exactly when, because time is kind of getting out of control for me in terms of, I don't know if it was something last week, if it was like 2 months ago, because time is definitely speeding up. But at least a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, I did join a group on Telegram called the Quantum Stellar Initiative. So it is through that group, and it is through me being involved with that group, and working with Q, like I said, this is how I'm getting the med bed. So through my involvement with Quantum Stellar Initiative, through the med beds that have rolled out through that group, there are a total of 14 that are coming this year. And there's a 15th one in a couple of years that's coming, and then some additional healing modalities after that. But it's
I'm sorry, is that 14 centers or 14 beds?
14 different types of med beds.
Oh, 14 different types of med beds. Wow.
So here are the numbers. So I don't know the exact number of people or number of businesses that are actually getting this. So let me just backtrack a little bit. So I have been involved in all of these med beds coming out through what are called ICOs, which stands for Initial Coin Offering. So on the stock market side of things, when a large corporation, decide to go public, they go through what's called an IPO, right? Which stands for Initial Public Offering. So on the new Earth side of things, where everything is going stellar, when an organization that is going to exist in the future that has a global or a large presence, they must go through what's called an ICO. And they must go through it on the stellar side of things or through the QSI development groups. So as all of these med beds have been coming out, I have been participating in what's called a group fund. And like I said, I don't know the number of people because we still have to go through the final qualification process of them identifying that we are who we say we are. But every time a new medbed came out, I participated in the group fund. And it's through the group fund, being a qualified investor, I had to go through training and pass all their, the modules and pass and did all the things to qualify. But it's those qualified investors or qualified participants in the QSI channel that are the ones that are receiving these med beds. And I don't know the number. It might be, several thousand, 3,000, 4,000. I really don't know. But and the number of med beds that each qualified investor is getting is, again, I don't know because I'm not sure if they invested in all of them or if they invested in just a few. But that's how we are getting them. And as a side note, every time we invested in a med bed or anything else that comes out right now through the ICOs, there are different bonus levels. So one of the bonuses, for example, excuse me, as a group, when we invested in this as a group, let's say, at certain level, when all of the group investments reach X number, then they added 2,000 med beds to be donated for humanitarian projects. So after everything has been said and done and all of the 15 medbed ICOs were released, we collectively as a group were able to invest. So we pulled together 28,000 med beds that are going to be given toward humanitarian projects when all of this is released roughly around a year from now.
Wow.
So the first people that are getting it are those 3 or 4, or I don't know exactly how many, like I said, or 5,000 individuals who actually invested. Now, of that pool of people, it's from what I can gather, and I don't know this for a fact, it's just my 2 cents in terms of the kinds of comments and things that I've been hearing from people that qualified. Most, I believe, are just people that don't have businesses, that just have a home. So of the 3 or 4 or however many thousands of people that are getting these med beds initially, only a small subset are actually businesses like mine that is a wellness center that's actually getting them. So it's me and 2 other qualified investors. We are pooling our med beds together, and we are making them available here at Ascended Wellness.
Wow, that's incredible. Does that mean you have to expand your Ascended Wellness?
Yes. So I actually signed a lease last week, basically doubling my space. So you've been here, Christina, so you know what my setup looks like. So,
it's a beautiful setup, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So we do have another building that kind of is like a sort of a T section. Mm-hmm. So it's in that other side of the building. But as far as the med beds go, so we're getting 10 med beds here, sometime in the, mid-April timeframe. And then, at the end of Q2, beginning of Q3, we will be getting additional modalities, at least another 6 to 9, depending on, what happens with the 2 other folks that I'm working with in terms of what they want to do with the med beds that they're getting. And then by the end of this calendar year, sometime in the 4th quarter, all of the med beds that we have will be able to operate all 14 modalities.
Oh, wow.
So that's sort of the timeline. So here at Ascended Wellness, we're getting 10 med beds. We're getting only 5 modalities, but it'll be 2 of each kind. By the end of Q2, Q3, we will be getting the additional 9 modalities for a total of 14. And then by the end of the year, all of the med beds will do everything. And then beyond the initial sort of, the beta testers, they're calling us beta testers not because of the technology, but beta testers in terms of how is humanity reacting to it, and how are we, as those who have qualified and have been entrusted to give this to humanity for free, how are we going about doing it? So I just want to mention, because I think I just threw that in there, this is being offered to people for free, because that was one of the conditions in which we are getting these med beds, even though we invested, to be able to qualify and participate in them. So the timeline beyond that is around this time next year is when information about humanitarian projects, the RV, and all that will be, coming out. It's all managed by Q. So there's so much disinformation and misinformation about that, going on right now. So in about a year's time, when we have accurate information about how to, go and get your humanitarian projects approved and things like that, the 28,000 med beds that we have basically been able to collect on behalf of humanity, that's when those will get donated. So by all means, Christina, please stay on top of, my information, because as soon as I have that information, of course, I'm going to be sharing it with people like you, because my gosh, can you imagine just feeling everything? And we haven't even gotten to how the med beds work yet. So that's a secondary timeline.
Absolutely.
And then beyond the humanitarian projects, through the rest of the world, the med beds will be made available sometime in 2026 or later, but the date is to be determined. So we're basically getting this a minimum of 2 to 3 years before the rest of the world.
That's so exciting. And, my focus is on our furry friends.
Yes.
So that's very exciting in terms of what we can do for them. So you spoke a little bit about the misinformation and disinformation and all that stuff. How do you navigate through all that and to kind of clear all the stories and junk that are out there?
Separating the wheat from the chaff.
Exactly.
So, I'll tell you what I do, but I think we all have our own way, that we kind of, decipher, information. So one thing is you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have a combination of several things before you decide what is true for you. And this may sound like a really, really weird thing to say, but truth is not absolute. It is relative. So let me explain what I mean by that. So for one thing, I have a husband who's a police officer. He doesn't like me to say that publicly, but I'm just going to share it anyway. And when he is at a scene and something happened, and he has to then go and interview everyone about what happened, he tells me I always know when something is true and when something is a blatant lie. Because when something is true and I go around individually interviewing people about what happened, what did you see, everyone tells almost the same thing. Everyone has a slightly different perspective on what happened, but generally speaking, you get the gist of it. However, when everyone says exactly the same thing, then I know that it's been contrived. So when we run across information, whether it's something we read, whether it's something we watch or something that somebody tells us, we all perceive the information with the color of glasses that we happen to wear, whatever that may be for each person, you know? And sometimes we hear what we want to hear rather than what is being told. So, you know, so it's very, very important when we're listening or watching or reading something, for one thing, to really try to put all of our biases aside and really look or watch or read the content for exactly what is being communicated and not what we are hoping to hear. So, you know, you've heard the term hopium, so we can't operate with hopium, you know, and only hear what we hope to hear. So that's one thing. So that's what I mean when I say truth is kind of relative. And the other thing too is, let's take something that most people probably in your audience are already familiar with, and that is, for example, the Freemasons. The Freemasons, as I think most people know that are in this, you know, group of listeners, probably know that they were started with good intent, with good people, with, you know, good intentions and everything. But over time, it got infiltrated and turned bad or malevolent. So when you ask someone, what do you think about the Freemasons, for example, you're going to hear the truth in terms of what that person thinks based on what they know. So if all they know, like let's say, for example, if we go back to one of the founding members of the Freemasons, who's the saint? Oh, Germain, for example, Saint Germain, sorry. So if you were to go back to Saint Germain at that time and ask about Freemasons, you're only going to get information in terms of the truth at that time. But if you go, you know, fast forward a couple of hundred years or whatever, once it was, you know, corrupted and it became the Illuminati, then you're going to get a different story. So I want to really emphasize, you know, when you talk about truth and deciding what truth is from, you know, fiction and you know, everything else, it's important to understand where somebody is coming from. And then secondly, a part of the truth can also be deceiving as well. So sometimes we're only given pieces of information because we may not be able to digest the entire truth, which is the case for all of us, because there's no one, I don't think, that knows the whole truth of the universe and the cosmos and everything else, because I think our minds would explode. So I just wanted to preface that. I'm sorry I'm being so long-winded.
That's okay. We got about 2 minutes left, Helen. So why don't you wrap up your thoughts, and then I'll have you say where people can find you.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I know we could probably talk for like another hour or so.
Oh, okay. So let me very, very quickly go over the 5 med beds that are coming, to Ascended Wellness. So we're getting Thyasti, which actually heals all bone and teeth related problems. We're getting a med bed called Neurobalance, which has to do with subconscious and trauma healing. We're getting a med bed called Youthful Pod, which is an age regression. It fixes, it repairs, you at the DNA level, including all of the juice that people got in their arms. It permanently reverses all forms of dementia and Alzheimer's. We're getting a med bed called Cosmic Energy, which is a holistic cellular healing, which also activates your spiritual gifts as well. And then the 5th one is Astral Harmony, which, among other things, when you're kind of, have gone through several sessions, it also allows you to communicate with those who have passed. So if you notice, out of the 5, only 2 really have to do with physical healing, and the other 3 go into the spiritual, mental, and emotional healing for the very reasons that we discussed.
Okay. Wow, it sounds very exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you'll have to come try it out for sure.
Absolutely. And where can people find you, Helen?
My website, which is ascended-wellness.com.
Okay, great. And I've been there. It's a beautiful facility, and I can't wait to see your other part with the med beds. So very excited. Thank you so much, Helen, for being here today. And everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast, and we will have another special guest next month. Yeah. So thank you so much. And you guys all have a great month. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bodega Cat Podcast. Your host, Christina Ng, will join you here again next month. Until then, have a beautiful month.